Hello everyone and welcome back, Dom here, and in this video I'm going to talk about my favorite stock plugins for mastering that we have in Cubase, right after this. So I wanted to make this video for a long time because many people ask me, do you use Cubase plugins for mastering? And the answer is, of course, yes, I do. The plugins that we have in Cubase are really amazing. In my opinion, sometimes they are much better than third-party plugins. Obviously, I have tons of third-party plugins, but the plugins that I buy and the plugins that I use are really selected just in case we don't have a plugin in Cubase that can do what I want, or if the plugin gives me a different sound. And it's exactly the same reason why I have hardware units, because it just gives me a different color. It's not that plugins are better or worse. So without any further ado, let's dive into my list. And I really tried to make it as short as possible because this video would be really long if I didn't do that. But I'm going to give you the essentials, the ones that I use most of the times, okay? Starting with frequency. And frequency only became better with Cubase 11. Why do I use frequency for mastering? First of all, it has a lot of bands. As you can see, we have 8 bands. Now, this is how it looks like, but it actually gives you a lot more flexibility because each one of these bands can be MS as well. You see that? So I can go here and turn this band into MS or stereo. So for mastering, I tend to go very quickly into the MS territory because I want to have a very clear idea of what happens with my mid and side channels. And like I said in a previous video, I've learned this technique on the System 6000 from TC back in the day, which was a hardware unit. But basically, even if I don't do any processing that's MS, I really want to check what's going on there, and frequency gives me that option. So as you can see here, I have a very basic setup for this track. Everything is an MS right now. Now, with the new version, with frequency 2, we have dynamic EQ for every band, which means that if you have a really offending frequency that you want to fix, you can fix it in a dynamic fashion, not in a static EQ fashion. So if it only appears in a few sections of the song, then you can fix it just for these sections. And each one of the bands can be also linear phase. See? You can turn them on like that, linear phase. Now for mastering, most of the times, most people will tell you that linear phase is best, right? But I would suggest that you listen first, especially when it comes to low frequencies, because there are some things that go on there when you're using non-linear phase EQs. Look it up, because this is not a tutorial for this, and this is going to be a very long video if I start talking about these things. But the great thing is that frequency 2 gives you the options. Let's have a listen and let me show you a little bit how it sounds. So straight away, if I go to my side signal for the first band, I can listen to the filter section. Have a listen. So very quickly, I can tell that on the side channel, I have the guitars, I have some slapback delay for the vocals, and I have a little bit of the room and the overheads from the drums. But down here, there's nothing, so I can probably save all this headroom. I would, of course, listen to the entire track, make sure that nothing is there for the entire length of the track, but and for the mid signal, I'm going to leave it a little bit to breathe in the low end. Now, what else? Let's find the kick drum. Nice. Let's find those guitars here with the side. Oh, and by the way that I can listen all these things is you just need to activate the auto listen for the filters. Really nice. And you can also have different graphs here. You can have 2 channels. You can have a bar graph instead. Yeah, maybe I want to clean those guitars here. And maybe, you know what, just for the sake of it, just so I can show you, I'm going to go here to this band for the mids, and I'm going to actually, why don't we go here? And I'm going to go and find the snare. See that snare? Now I can turn this into a dynamic EQ, okay? And now, when the snare hits, I can have this EQ just boost those frequencies. Let's have a listen. I'm exaggerating, obviously, this sounds totally wrong, but I want to show you what it does, because I would probably go very, very conservative with that. Just 1 dB. Yeah, so it's very, very powerful. This is the first plugin, and I'm gonna move to the second now. Frequency 2, though, is a really nice EQ for mastering. Now, the second plugin, if you're a long-time subscriber, please don't share this with anyone else. This is really something that I find that's really special in Cubase. It's the Multiband Envelope Shaper. And you would probably be like, why would you use this for mastering? But before I tell you why I would use it for mastering, I want to say a few words about today's video sponsor, and that's Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. Not only you can expand and enhance your existing skills, but you can also explore new things, new skills that up to this point you might not have time or the energy to look into and find the right content so that you can become better at them. And Skillshare has pretty much every topic covered, from music, music theory, learning an instrument, photography, videography, marketing, business, you name it. It has a course for everyone. Many of you already know that I'm a photography and videography geek. So lately I've been checking out portrait photography, shoot and edit Instagram-worthy shots from Jessica Cubase. Jessica is an incredible content creator. I've been following her for a while. She's great with photography. I like her style. I like her aesthetics. So finding her class on Skillshare was really a great surprise for me. She goes through everything from planning your shot to going deep into gear, geek talk, talking about retouching, editing, and enhancing your photos. If you have Skillshare and you're interested in photography, I would totally recommend this class for you. Now, the great thing with Skillshare is that it's curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads and they're always launching new premium classes so that you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. And it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. But the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link below in the description will get a free trial of the premium membership so that you can explore your creativity. Thank you so much, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. Let's go and talk about the Multiband Envelope Shaper now. So normally I wouldn't use this for mastering, but sometimes I get tracks to master that are not very well mixed. And, you know, maybe there's no way that we can go back to the original mix and change something. Or maybe the artist or the client maybe don't have access, or it's an old track and they just want to revive it. And sometimes, you know, the snare is a little bit bland, the transients are a little bit shaved off, somebody did some compression that wasn't right, and now we have to undo what happened. Well, the Multiband Envelope Shaper is a plugin that will allow you to fix problems like this. Disclaimer though, if you have access to the original mix, do it in the original mix, don't do it in mastering. However, if you need to do this in mastering, let me show you what it does. So let's say I want to add a little bit of attack to this kick drum. Snare. Maybe I want to make this snare tighter. See how it brings out these hi-hats now. Let's have a listen. Without. Here was transients. I had so much feedback from clients all these years since this plugin came out. You know, they were just getting in touch with me. How did you make the snare come out again? How did you add punch to the snare? It wasn't possible. And that was a secret. You have to be careful though. You have to play with the sensitivity and all these things, the length. But it's almost like cheating. It's really, really powerful. Again, I wouldn't use it if I was producing my own music or if it was something that I had mixed, because I would take care of all the transients and all these things, the attacks, the punch in the mix first, and then I would just enhance it with the mastering. But if you're in trouble, multiband envelope shaper, don't tell anyone though. The next one, I've talked about this. This is Squasher. And this is a brand new plugin, was introduced in Cubase 11, but I think it's going to be a classic. It is already a classic for me. It does downward compression, upward compression, and it already gives you a full sound, especially for electronic music. I find that this works incredibly well. It has an aggressive sound, so maybe I wouldn't use it for classical music, but for everything else, let's have a listen. And I've said it before, if you use it for mastering, just try and open the attack a little bit. You will get a more open and more punchy sound. And also, don't forget that you can use it with the mix here, so you can blend it in with the original signal. And I mean, don't get me wrong, my purist side, my purist mastering side says this is way too drastic for mastering. But for some specific genres of music, this is part of the sound. So we cannot just disregard this. This is a part of the sound for quite a few genres of electronic music, for rock music. You know, it depends. I'm not talking about Beatles stuff, okay? But I'm talking about really aggressive music. I'm gonna tell you that you will be very, very hard-pressed to get to the aggressiveness and the sound without using squash or using like traditional mastering techniques. You can say that it's not really mastering, it's like bus processing, but nevertheless, you know what I'm talking about. It's really powerful. So I would use it, again, with caution, but if you're looking for an aggressive sound, that's for you. The next plugin is another big favorite of mine, and this is the Quadra Fuzz. Now this, I use it very sparingly on the master bus to add a little bit of color and to add a little bit of width sometimes, and sometimes to be a little bit more aggressive, but let me show you what it does. Without. So Quadra Fuzz, I've said this before, it was, I think, in one of my top 5 Cubase plugins. That was an old video. But anyway, it's a multiband tape saturator, tube saturator, distortion, amp simulator, and decimator. It's like bit reduction and sample rate reduction as well. So the way I use it in the master bus is most of the times, maybe 70% of the times with the tape, and some other times I also add the tube depending on the color that I want to get. But most of the times I like the tape, just a little bit. Let me show you how it sounds without it. I'm going to start adding a little bit of tape. Let's try the tube. See how much it thickens these low mids and the vocals? And it adds a lot of excitement in the top end as well. I really like that. But like I said, I'm always going very conservative with this because this is supposed to be a tool for, adding character, a lot of character. So on the master bus, you need to be a little bit careful, but you also have the width control here. And another thing that you can do, like with the squasher, you can blend it in. So you can add just a tiny bit of color. And actually that's what I do most of the times with this plugin. But also the next one, which is Magneto. And this is a really beautiful tape emulation plugin. It also adds a lot of character, but you can also make things a little bit less harsh, or you can add some nice top end. Let's have a listen. Now let's shave the top end a little bit, tape style, or the other way around. Yeah, it adds quite a bit of character, and of course if you go subtle with it, it can add this extra bit of color to your master. Now what I usually do is I add a tiny bit of each one of these processors when I'm doing mastering, and a little goes a long way. So if you add just a tiny bit of Magneto and then Quadra Fuzz, or maybe, pick and choose. You don't have to add all of them, obviously, because then you might end up with a lot of saturation in your mix, and this might not be something that you want, but they will give you a little bit of oomph every single time you add each one of these plugins. The last plugin that I'm going to talk about today is, I think, one of the unsung heroes in Cubase, and I don't think I've talked about it before. This is the Multiband Compressor, and many people tend to overlook this plugin, but it's really, really good. To my eyes and to my ears, this has a little bit of the finalizer philosophy. So you have your threshold, you have your ratio, you have your attack, your release, but pretty much when you add any gain reduction, you get a little bit of compensation. So let me show you how it sounds. I always tend to save my own presets for the plugins that I use all the time because I can recall them, but this is one of the plugins that I've created for a really quick mastering situation, okay? And you see I'm barely touching the needle. I'm just compressing just a tiny bit. And the only thing you have to be careful with is, of course, your threshold and then your attack times. The release, I think that the auto release for this one sounds really, really nice, especially on the master bus. Let's have a listen. See, it's like it compensates straight away for the reduction that I'm doing. This is the DOM Master Glue. Feel free to copy the settings. It's all free. But yeah, it's actually very, very simple to do. Just listen, make sure that you're not squashing, with the attack and you're not completely destroying the transients. Leave it open. It will give you a nice, open, bright, I would say punchy, but also a little bit poppy sound to your productions. Also great for genres that have a lot of low end, like trap, hip hop, and you want to tame it a little bit. The low end is great for this because it is smooth. So you can use it, again, like with any multiband compressor, be careful because you don't want to change the entire frequency balance of your mix. So use with caution. I'm just giving you the tools. It's your job to take care of your music, right? But yeah, multiband compressor, really cool. So I wanted to keep this as short as possible. So this is my short list of my favorite stock Cubase plugins that I use for mastering. In the comments down below, let me know which plugins are your favorite plugins for mastering in Cubase. And if you enjoyed this video and if you learned something, if you had fun, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and share this with any Cubase user. Actually, no, don't share it. Don't share it. Don't share the multiband envelope shaper trick. Don't do it. Don't do it. No, just don't. Bye.